If you have a WordPress website built with Elementor and you want to track forms with Google Analytics 4, then this video is for you. Here is a demo page that was built with Elementor, and here is a demo form. So in this tutorial, I assume that you have already installed Google Tag Manager on your website. And in that Google Tag Manager container, you have at least one Google Analytics 4 configuration tag. If you have no idea what Google Analytics 4 configuration tag is, then I will post a link to the description below the video where I explain how to install GA4 with Google Tag Manager. So to track the submissions of this form, we are going to use the built-in form submission trigger in Google Tag Manager. On most websites, that trigger is not very reliable, but in case of Elementor, it looks like it's working pretty well. So first, let's go to Triggers, then New, Trigger Configuration, and then select Form Submission. For now, let's have this trigger enabled on all forms. Later, we will make it more precise. So we can name this, let's say, Form Submissions, and then click Save. Now let's click the Preview button, and then enter the URL of the website where you have the Elementor form. Click Connect. So here I want to test several scenarios. The first one is to see what happens if I leave the form fields empty and then I submit the form. So I see some warning, and here I don't see any events related to form submissions. So that is good because we want to have form submissions only when the form was actually submitted. So here, let's say that I will enter the first name and then I will click send. Now I have another warning with email address, and still I have nothing related to form submission. Form start is coming from enhanced measurement of GA4, but form start is not form submission. So this is working well so far. Now, if I enter the email address, which is also a required field, then I will click send. In this context, message is not required. So once I click it, I see the success message, and now I would expect to see my form submission event in the preview mode. And we indeed have it. This one is coming from Google Tag Manager, and this one is coming from Google Analytics 4 enhanced measurement, but let's ignore it. It's not a problem because in this case, the event names are different. This one says form submit, while this one says gtm.formSubmit. So if you have one event with gtm.formSubmit, this is working fine. So now if I expand this data layer push, I can see some information about the form. For example, I see the element classes, which is Elementor form. This could help me distinguish that Elementor form was submitted, not just any random form. However, if I go to variables, I will see that I don't have anything related to form variables. So to fix that, I should go to Google Tag Manager, variables, then click configure, and then enable all form variables. Now, if we quickly go back to the preview mode without refreshing it yet, you will see that we don't have any element ID, which means that this form does not have an ID. And if I had, for example, several forms on a page, it would be difficult for me to distinguish which form was submitted. So what I would recommend is that you go to your WordPress admin panel, then revisit all forms that you're using and add IDs to those forms. You can do that by going to Elementor editor, then click on the form, then scroll down and additional options. Here you can enter form ID. So since we are working with a contact form, we can add a contact form ID or something like that. Then I will click update and this form will get an ID. If you have more forms, make sure you update them as well, because we will later send this form ID to Google Analytics 4 as an event parameter. So click update, then let's go to Google Tag Manager, click the preview to refresh everything and then to fetch the latest version of the form. And then I will submit the form once again, then click send. I see the success message and I see form submit. I can click it, I can go to variables, and one of the variables there is form ID, and this is our ID that we entered in the form settings. Also, as I've mentioned, we have form classes variable and it contains some value. This tells us that the form is related to Elementor. So we can actually make our form submission trigger more precise, and to make sure that it will fire a tag, which we will create later, should fire only when the form classes contains Elementor form. So let's go to Google Tag Manager, Triggers, and then update the form submission trigger. So instead of all forms, we will go to some forms, click classes, contains, and then Elementor form right here. Then we can name the trigger, let's say submission Elementor form or anything else. Click Save. The final step is to create a tag that will send an event to Google Analytics 4. So go to Tags, click New, Tag Configuration, Google Analytics 4 Event, and here you should insert the same measurement ID that you have in your Google Analytics 4 configuration tag, or also known as just Google tag. So you can copy here, and then let's start again. So tag configuration, Google Analytics 4 Event, and then you can paste it right here. So once you enter it, then Google Tag Manager will look for a Google tag, which uses the same measurement ID in order to inherit certain settings. However, you will be doing this every time you create a new event tag. So instead of just copy pasting every time, I would recommend creating a variable that will contain this ID, and then it will be easier for you in the future to reuse it. So let's cut the measurement ID, click this button, and then if you already have that variable which contains your ID, then good, you can use that. But in my case, I don't have it yet, so I will click the plus, then variable configuration, and then select constant. Here you should insert the measurement ID, and then you can name this, let's say GA4 measurement ID, and then the actual ID. Click Save. When the variable is inserted that way, the validation here is not triggered, therefore we don't see the green check mark. I think that this is a bug in GA4, so now we can just select everything, cut it, and paste it once again. And now Google Tag Manager checked the measurement ID in this variable, and it says that everything is fine. Then we have to enter the event name. Even though Google Analytics recommends that form submissions should be tracked with generate lead event, I personally did not find any benefit of that. So you're free to choose the event name. It can be generate lead. It can be something else. For example, form submission. Then together with this event, we could send a form ID. So let's go to event parameters, click add parameter, and then enter form ID. Here we can insert the variable. So click the button and then select form ID like this. Then let's click triggering and let's insert our trigger that we just created. Also, I noticed that I made a typo, so I will rename this to Elementor. Click Save. And then let's name this tag. Click Save. Let's test if this is working properly. Click Preview. Then let's submit the form. I will enter some things here and then click Send. Then in Google Analytics, go to Admin, Debug View, and then one of the events that you see here should be form submission. And here is the form ID that we sent together with the event. Right now, when I'm recording this video, form ID is still not available as a built-in dimension. So if you want to start seeing it in the report, you should register it as a custom dimension. So copy form ID exactly like this, then go to custom definitions, create custom dimension, and then enter form ID. And here you should enter exactly form ID like this, because that's the parameter that we sent to Google Analytics. Now, the reason why I have these warnings right here is because I have created this dimension in the past. So Google Analytics 4 does not allow me to create a duplicate dimension. So after you save the dimension and you tested your setup and you're sure that Elementor form tracking works well, then you should go to Google Tag Manager, click Submit, and then complete all the required steps to publish this configuration for your visitors. And then from that moment, the data should start flowing into your Google Analytics 4 property. Now the question is, where can you see that data? First of all, you need to be patient because Google Analytics takes around 24 hours to start showing that information in Google Analytics 4 reports. There are various ways and places how can you see that data, but I will show you two examples. So first of all, you should be looking for the events report somewhere. Your sidebar might look different. You might see engagement, or you might see something else like business objectives. So basically just expand all of the topics right here and keep looking for the events report. By the way, I am in the reports section here. So once you go to events, then you should keep looking for the form submission event, or if you have named it something else, then you will see that event name. You can click it. And since we registered form ID as a custom dimension, you will see that one of the widgets here is related to the form ID in this report. So here you can see the value of the form ID. If you have multiple forms, then you will see all those form IDs here. And then you can see how many times was that form ID sent and how many users. So in this case, I'm working with a demo property. I submitted the form once. So I just have ones right here and right here. Also, you can go to the events list and then you can click the plus, add form ID as a secondary dimension, and then you can narrow down to just form submission events. And here you can see pretty much the same thing, just in a larger table. Then you can also build a freeform exploration, but that kind of report goes out of scope of this particular video. If you want to learn more on how to build reports in Google Analytics 4, then take a look at my paid Google Analytics 4 course, and I will post a link to it below the video. And that's how you can track Elementor forms with Google Analytics 4 and Google Tag Manager. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video. That will help me understand what videos you like and what should I create in the future. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or GA4, then consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.